Welcome back to Hot Rod Guy Garage. Today we're going to work on these E7 heads, so follow me along through the intro and I'll be back. So, alright guys, a lot of you wanted to see a budget head porting video on these E7 cylinder heads. Now, these heads are not necessarily horrible, but there is several improvements that we can make to them. So, I'm going to flip the camera around and I'm going to show you some hot spots on them, and then we'll go from there. And probably the worst port in an E7 head. You can see the old exhaust gasket location right here. The exhaust ports on any small block Ford head is the downfall of most small block Fords. And I don't know if you can see right here, you have a smog bump right here, and this E7 head has a port that goes through here that pumps fresh air from the smog pump into the exhaust ports towards the valve down there, which in turn creates more turbulence. Usually there's about a 10 CFM gain on each port just to remove these lumps. You can also see up in here, right up here in our bowl area, it's pretty rough. You got some lumpy stuff all the way up. You got a bump out in the wall right here, and that's not where all the bad things stop. And it's real hard to kind of video this stuff where you can see it. You've all got boss. You can see how large it is. Our port tapers up and then out right here. So there's some improvements can be made in this area and this area in just a few minutes. And moving on to the intake port, you can see a bump up right here in the bowl area. More of your valve guide boss. And there's also a corresponding bump like this on the top side up here. And the intake ports yourself, they're not all that bad. Usually they're cast pretty clean. They could use some cleanup because this floor is kind of bumpy. I say floor, this is a wall, this big side. You can see it's kind of bumpy as we go back. Up on this side, we have a push rod bump right here that can be laid back a little bit also. And I'll flip this head over so you can see that bump in the push rod. Boss right there. So this tapers up, over, and then in. So there's just a little minor cleanup to do in here, a little minor cleanup to do in the bowls, and a lot of minor cleanup to do in our exhaust side up here. And we can probably have a pretty respectable flowing cylinder head for a stock iron head. And I am going to preface this by just about every aluminum head on the market, guys, is better than any iron head. A lot of people might disagree with me, but it is the truth. You can make some budget improvements in this with little time invested. I wouldn't spend a whole bunch of time doing a max port job on a stock iron head, and that's not what we're going to do with these, because this is going to be a street engine. So we're looking for quick, easy gains where we can grab them. So I don't have a flow bench. This is all going to be kind of just what I've gathered over the years working with small block Ford stuff. So usually, like I said, that little smog bump and exhaust port's usually about 10 CFM on E7. Keep in mind, there is many of these small block heads, like some of your D8s and all the way back into your, your C8, C9 stuff, has these kind of bumps and exhaust ports. So there's a pretty decent gain there. I've seen some old dyno testing articles on some of the old heads that they pick up about 20 horsepower by just grinding that bump out. So let's get started marking this stuff out, how we're going to open it up a little bit. And I'll show you how to do that, and then we'll go from there. And we are going to start on the exhaust side. There are several different small block Ford exhaust gaskets. Most of your stuff is going to be a square port right here. And this is a Velcro Performance gasket, so it is a little bit bigger than a stock gasket. But as you can see, it lines up about with our carbon footprint that's already on our head. And there's definitely a lot of material that can be removed. Some of your classic Ford headers use this oval port gasket. And the reason where this come into play the old Crane Fireball 289 heads actually used this oval style port, and a lot of these old header manufacturers have maintained this flange. The headers that I have these flanges on them. This flange is not no wider than the stock port, but it is taller and a little bit lower. So in reality, you can pick either one of these. Most of your square flange headers are going to use this size. If you got an older set of headers, they're going to use these. The square will seal the oval slightly. Like, it'll seal the head, but you're going to have a little bit of an overlap up here. So this is a choice you have to make when you start this, because like I told you before, you can see the width difference right here. You're not going to gain a whole bunch from the floor on the intake or the exhaust, but you gain on the sides and the top up here. And there's plenty of material to remove from the sides and the top. So if you have a set of heads that's already been run like this with this style gasket, you've already got your road map already, because you got a carbon ring around here, and that's why I didn't clean these up. You will not do any of this stuff with the head assembled. You will need the head disassembled. Because metal shavings and chips, guys, can get in anywhere and sit there and get down in your engine, and then you're going to have a bad day. So the easiest way I found to mark these is I will just hold this with my hand up here in position. I'll just square all our bolt holes up. I will take a contrasting color like this, like this bright silver, and just dust it. Now you have a loud and clear road map. A lot of people probably won't like that. Yes, we got paint on our gasket, but it's not going to hurt it. None at all. But now we know how much material we can remove. So at this point, guys, I'm going to stay inside these perimeters right here. And you see it's more biased towards the back than it is the front on every single port. You also need to take this gasket and lay it on your header, because you definitely do not want this port bigger than your header flange. This is assuming your header flange is the same size as this gasket. If it's not, make sure you play inside the lines of your header flange, because any lip from here going into the exhaust will cause a little reversion wall basically, and it's going to shove some of that exhaust flow back towards the valve. And what I have here is my Matco non-ferrous bit set. There is some ferrous bits in here also that are a little bit finer than these. Cast iron's pretty soft, guys, and you can kind of get away with this as long as you keep them cool, keep these bits cool. I have 3 different kinds of die grinders because these all do different things. You know, this one spins a little faster than this one, and this one has got 90 on it and an adjustable regulator. I can kind of change the speeds depending on what I need to do. We're not going to go into polishing these ports. We're just going to cut out the bad stuff and pat it on the butt and send it on. But this is what I use. I'll just use an assortment of bits, and then I'll use some of these fine ones towards the end to clean the ports the rest of the way up. So what I'm going to start out with, guys, is my little ball right here. It is the most aggressive cutting thing I have. So I'm just going to go in here, and I'm just going to attack this bump right here first. I'm going to get this bump removed. I'm going to put you guys on time lapse while I remove it. Then I'm going to come in here and kind of dig these walls out just a touch. And I'm going to dig our roof out right here a little bit. And then I'll be back. And so you're that guy that wants that 5-minute improvement, 5 minutes worth of time improvement in that port. That right there, I just went in there, ground that boss down, and tapered this floor upward. And I just come down in here and just kind of blended it in just a touch. You could totally stop at this point right here and you would gain power. But like I said, we have all this material that we could remove, and any of this material we move in this upper 3/4 of an inch right here, I don't want to take any out of this floor, because when your exhaust comes in, it's going to shoot at the top of this port on up out. And like I said, if you get the old set of headers, let's get the old Crane Fireball style ports, you can totally remove this material up here at the top. I wouldn't remove any down here. I would remove it in this area right here and not worry about widening the ports. So it's up to you how you decide you want to do it. So I personally got to make up my mind what I'm going to do. If I'm going to change my headers to a more conventional square flange, or if I'm going to use the oval port headers that I already have, because that is going to dictate quite a bit of what we're going to do here. There's advantages, like I said, there's advantages to each style with these ports. So this one will lean a little bit more towards the torquey side while helping flow quite a bit. So let's get to grinding. And I decided to stop in between the two gaskets there. I didn't widen it any. I just went in there and dug out some of that flash over here. And you can see there's quite a bit of, and I know the light kind of washes it out, but there's quite a bit of straight up and out change there. So the next thing I want to do, guys, I'm going to focus on this boss right here. And I'm just going to try to lay it back and make it flow around this area as smoothly as I can. Alright, so like I said before, I went in here, I just cleaned the flash up in here, guys. I didn't spend a whole lot of time in here. I tried to dig out on each side of this valve guide boss, make sure there wasn't any lumps. And I come in here and I reduced the head of that thing down quite a bit. I have seen people grind this down, straight down, and try to taper this whole thing upward. And you can totally do that. But in this application, I'm not going to. I think at this point we're pretty good for what we're trying to achieve. And like I said, I just go in there and just try to clean up any kind of, make sure I don't feel any peaks and valleys. That's what you don't want. It don't have to be polished to a mirror. You just don't want no peaks and valleys in here. So I did come in here and clean up this port floor just slightly. I just ground the flash off of it, smooth it up. I did not remove any material or change shape. And I did smooth the short turn, which is going to be right here on the inside. You don't want to get too wild there because there's water right under it. I just took any lip, any sharp lip off of it from where they done the valve job previously. A big thing to note, guys, you do not want to, unless you're sending this head out to have valve job done after you do this, be very, very careful of your valve seat. If you nick that valve seat with your grinder or with up here, what you call it up here, you're going to have a valve job done. I'll show you a little later in this video what I'm going to do as far as prepping the valve seats again. But if you're real worried about it, take a piece of duct tape, tape this thing up. So, as you can see, I just kind of decided to stick with my little oval port gasket right here. And you can see how it brought it up. right here. We could still put a square port header on this, because I stopped just a hair short from the top up there. But you can see the difference in there. You can fully stick your finger all the way through this one, and then here it starts to get tight right around the knuckle area. This one will swallow it with room to spare. This one, not so much. Your biggest gains are going to be in that exhaust port. And I know it's not professional porter quality, and that's not what we're going for here. We're going for do it in your backyard with what you got kind of quality. So small improvements are going to make a big gain, especially in a street strip car or something that's actually going to be driven. But definitely, before you do anything, make sure on your header flanges what you got. Now, this will give me the option to go back, because I didn't go quite up straight to the top of that fireball style port there. So we do, however, have that oval shape now at the top part of this port, which will help the exhaust gases get out. So I just need to repeat this 3 more times on this head and 4 more on the other, identically. That's going to be another thing, guys. When you do this, you want to be consistent between all the ports. You could totally CC each one of these at no 100%. But if you just go ahead and do it while you start doing it, remember your limits where you're going, you're going to go a long ways. Like I said before, if you just want to grab the smoke bump out of it, that's going to be quite a bit of difference, guys. So I'm just going to keep repeating this. I'm going to put y'all on a big stand. Let's get these done. We'll move on to the intake port. And just so everybody knows, as far as time goes, I'm spending about 15 minutes per each exhaust port. That's what this last time-lapse clip actually added up to. So just go slow, make sure you don't damage anything, don't get wild digging stuff out. Just spend a little time. Think of it like water flowing through it. You want water to flow smooth and free. Air's not much difference, guys. So just take your time. If you're worried about it, wear eye protection. There is stuff that slings off this, could get in your eyes. You know, if you want to wear a respirator, do that too. I know sometimes you guys like to get on to me about safety things, but there's a little more to that than what meets the eye. So wear your own personal protective gear as you feel needed. And after you get your exhaust side done, you need to move on to the intake side. So you have several options with a small block Ford. You can use the standard gasket, which I have right here, which is a 90361. This is a standard HO intake gasket for a 79 through 93 Mustang. The next step up from this would be a 1250 Felpro, which is quite a bit larger. I've got one over here I'll show you, but I'll show you how close these 90361s are actually fitting head ports. So I'm going to use the standard gasket. So I've done the same thing I did on the other ones. I just held it up there, centered it up, and a little contrast and spray paint. You can see that there is very, very small amounts of material that are going to have to be removed to gasket match this. This is a Felpro 1250. So this is going to be about the equivalent of your AFR 165s, your Edelbrock Performer heads, so on and so forth. You can see they are quite a bit larger, yet again, than this port right here, to the point of about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. If we were going to build a hot motor instead of a mild street motor, I would probably go ahead and port this head to this gasket right here. I'm more concerned with parts availability and torque and longevity than I am for max power with this. That's why we didn't go no further on exhaust. So we're going to use the standard gasket. We're just going to gasket match it to it. We're going to come in here and remove any casting burrs like these in the bottom of the ports. I'm going to smooth up the push rod transition in here. There's a bump out in here you can feel. And then we'll move on into the bowl a little bit. So let me get this demonstration cut right here. We're going to show y'all what we're doing, and we can go from there. So guys, right here, this is a real great angle to see this. There is a bump right here for your push rod. This right here isn't the world thick, okay? It's probably only about 1/4 inch thick, and we probably have about 5/16 of protrusion. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to start on the back side of this, and I'm just going to try to take as much of this lump out as I possibly can without making this material super thin in here. And then I'm going to go in here, and like I said, I'm just going to gasket match around these ports. You see a little casting flash up here at the top, and I'm just going to buzz that off. And anything that is mega rough, I'm going to go in here and just address it as we go. So I'm going to put you guys on time lapse. Hopefully that explains what I'm going to do here, and then we'll go from there. Alright, and hopefully this will help you guys understand what's going on here. I gasket matched it right here. I took what little taper I had from gasket matching it, and I blended on back about halfway down this port, all the way around. I blended it all the way to about halfway down this port where it feels good and smooth as you come up. I took our push rod lump, and you can still see it, but it's not as pronounced as what it was. I just kind of laid it back, smoothed it up best I could, tried to take it from any disturbance of flow. You could probably grind about 99% of this out, but I want to make sure we don't damage this area and have oil suction problems into our intake ports. And bigger is not always necessarily better, guys. Like I said, think about it like air, like water. You know, like fluid dynamics here. You want it smooth and as straight as you possibly can get it. So sometimes you get things in the way, like the push rod pockets in these ports on Ford head. You know, like I said, this material is probably about 1/4 inch thick. I probably removed about 1/8 inch from this one in that area. So that means we should have about 1/8 inch remaining. So that's going to be our preliminary port right there. And I'm going to repeat that through the other 3 cylinders on this head. But we need to talk about the bowl area and the valve guide on the intake side. So this is our intake bowl area. As you can see, we have that same lump right here that we had in exhaust. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to cut this lump out right here. I am also going to cut this valve guide down into as much of a bullet shape right here as I can, and reduce this edge as much as I possibly can. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to dig this bowl out right here and in here on both sides of this valve and up in here a little bit, all the way up to this side of our valve seat, while keeping kind of this same taper as we go, because you got to remember air is coming in. Air does not like to bend. So we want to try to make this air shoot in here as easy as we can. So just come in here, take any lumpy stuff out, streamline this area as much as you can, and open up around the sides of this boss as much as you can. Now keep in mind, like I told you in the exhaust side, there is water behind this. Water runs all down up in here. And it is not mega thick, okay? You can probably remove a 1/4 to 1/8 inch material right in here. Any more, you're going to start to get thin. And there's nothing worse than getting ground through right here, because you're going to waste any other work you've already done. And there is a point of diminishing return. You grind it too much and you bust through in the water, you're done. The head's junk. So proceed with caution. Sometimes it's better to grind a little less than what you think than a little too much. So, you know, just use your head, guys. This is very mild stuff I'm doing right here. This would be a mild street motor kind of thing, where I'm focusing more on the exhaust now and the intake. So I'm going to leave about 99% of that intake port untouched. The intake port's good to be rough, because you want roughness because it helps break up the air and the fuel. But we want to try to help it while we're in here as much as we can too. So let me get to it, and when I get this 1 cylinder cut, I'll come back and I'll show you versus the 2nd cylinder next to it. Alright, you see I kind of bullet shaped this right here, and I opened this up in here where we're pinched down. I dug this out around in here on both sides. I brought this valve guide boss down a little bit. There's quite a bit right there. I can't stick my finger in past the knuckle there, and we can swallow it over here. So from here, once you get to this point, I didn't remove a ton of material in here. I just kind of tapered it in through here. Same over here. I tapered it up, but I got rid of any lumps and bumps, and I concentrated most of our work in this area right here. I did come in here and touch the short side and just removed any roughness in this turn. You don't want to remove any excessive amount from this, but if it's sharp, just take the sharpness off. And most of the time that sharpness is just where the valve throat was cut. So just lightly transition this. But this is kind of what you're shooting for right here. And I'm just going to repeat this on these other 3. And after this, let's go do the other head. Then we got to clean all this stuff up. And then I'm going to show you guys how to lap these valves, check your valve seats, check your guides. And we'll get these things reassembled and ready to go on the engine. So hopefully some of you will understand what's going on. This is not professional port work, guys. This is just kind of some cleanup stuff to make things a little better as we go. Meaning that we're not going to the point of hurting anything. Every bit of this will show an improvement on a flow bench, I can guarantee you that. But not as good as a professional job. So got a few hours, you know, a couple days spend on weekend or something, you want to try to improve your heads, this right here will be kind of the guide you can follow. 3 hours in, I've got 1 cylinder head done consistently across all the ports. And I got stuff all over my face. I got stuff all over my hands. You know, metal everywhere. Blew the shop out. So tomorrow I'm gonna come in here. I want to match the other head to this one. And then we'll get this stuff cleaned up. Then we can start reassembling them. Well, it's the next day and I need to get this other head done. So let's get started on it. Let's check up on Daisy and see if we can find her. And then I'll be back, guys. You want to remind them about your shirts? You playing, hanging out on the floor? Get to grinding. At this point, I'm about 3/4 of the way done. Letting the air compressor cool down a little bit. So this, guys, is going to be a very, very messy little project. You're going to be messy. Everything around it's going to be messy. The head's going to be messy. So important thing to note, you're going to do this and you're going to use an air tool like I am. Make sure you drain your water off your air separator, air water separators every once in a while. Drain your compressor. Because it is really going to run one of these really hard. I've got a 120 gallon tank outside. It pretty much runs constantly when running these air tools. So just be prepared that, you know, it's going to be a commitment here to do things. So let me get back to it, and when I get this other head finished up, I'll be back. And alright, I got the heads finished up. If you're one of the sand and roll crowd and you have to have everything pretty and perfect, you can get this at your Harbor Freight. The part number for this, 62394. This is an assortment. It's going to come with some mandrels that will go into your die grinder. It's going to come with an assortment of sanding rolls, like so. And you're just going to take these sanding rolls, put them on your mandrel. These things will just kind of push on there. The slower you turn these, the better results you'll have. You don't want to just take this thing and, you know, spin it 13,000 RPM. So you want to kind of have some control, and you can go up here and take out any roughness or bumps that you may have left behind. If you were a little rough with your hand, with the other bits, you can clean them up with this. And then you're going to clean your heads for the first time, or second time, or third time, depending on how many times you clean them previous to this, before you start grinding on them. So I took the heads outside, I degreased them with some super clean, scrubbed them down real good, brought them back in here, sprayed them down with a little WD-40, blew them out with the air hose real well. I took old valves, I chucked them up in the drill, used a wire brush on the bench grinder to clean the back sides of these valves up. So at this point, we're ready to check our valve seats and make sure everything is happy there. So let me flip it around. I'll put you on the big stand. We'll see if we can talk about it. So what we're going to start out with is 16 clean valves. Now, your local parts store, you can get something like this. This is the Permatex brand valve grinding compound. This is Versachem's version of metal grinding compound, which is the same thing as a valve grinding compound. You have a fine grade here, you have a coarse grade here. Generally, guys, if these were old, nasty, seated junkyard heads, we would start off with a coarse grade. You can see somebody has cut these valves and their stone was in pretty piss poor condition, I'll just say that, when they done the valve job on these heads. And the valve seats aren't much better. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bust open the fine version of this valve grinding compound. I'm going to take our valve. I'm going to spray a little WD-40 on the stem right here. I'm going to put a little of that valve grinding compound right here where the taper contacts the valve seat. We're going to spin one of these and see what kind of pattern we're going to have. So yes, the head flash rusted before I could spray it down with anything, but that's not what we're going to do here. I'm just going to take a slow turning drill like this Walmart Hyper Tough drill right here. I'm going to take, and I'm going to do an intake valve first because it's larger. You're going to take this valve grinding compound, you're going to knead it in the tube a little bit because this stuff separates. And we're going to open it right here. And I'm going to put just a little bit here on this seat. I'm going to wipe the rest of it off on a clean towel down here. I'm going to put just a little WD-40, which if you know from my engine build videos, my WD-40 is not WD-40, I just call it that. It is mixed with another lubricant. I'm going to take our drill on the back side and I'm going to be gentle with the chuck. I'm not going to He-Man it tight, and I'm just going to spin this valve, putting a little pressure on it with my finger. And I'll raise it every once in a while to distribute some of that lube. I'll spin it a little bit, and if I feel like it's the material on our valve grinding compound is worn out, I'll take and put a little more on there and spin it some more. If you want to, you can spin it the other way. It's not gonna matter which way you spin this. And I'm just going to take my chuck loose right here. I'm going to pull our valve out. I'm going to use a clean towel to wipe our valve seat off on both sides here. And we should have a good dull gray color all the way around your seat up here. As you can see, that one's dull gray compared to that one. Your valve is going to be dull right here, and it took out most of those chatter marks from where they ground these valves before. And you're just going to repeat this process on all 16 valves. If the fine does not give you the result that you want, you can go to the coarse. The coarse will cut a little faster. Basically what this is doing is we're basically putting liquid sandpaper right here that is inside of some grease, and we're taking it and just running it between this valve and here. Make sure that we have a good seal, that way when this engine's running and this valve's doing this, when it gets in this closed position, we don't have no air leakage out around the valves. And another thing to note, you want to check your valve guide play, and these do have a little bit of play in them. If you have a lot of play, you can take that valve and move it 1/4 inch or so. Your head really needs valve guides put in. But for budget purposes here, guys, personally, I feel like this head's probably are due for a set of guides. But we're going to lap these valves since the machine shop's already had a hold of them. Make sure we have a nice seat, especially since we went here and ground on these heads. And then we can reassemble it. Valve sealing, guys. This right here is more important than you'll ever know. if this valve cannot seal off, you will have low compression issues. You will have low power issues, which negates everything that we just done, trying to add a little bit of power to this. So this is just going to be kind of a cheap deal, a quick, cheap, you know, we're going to lap the valves, we're going to reassemble these heads, and we're going to put it together and run it. So as long as we don't see anything detrimental, I think we'll be good. And you're going to repeat this until you have a nice concentric band on both the valve and the valve seat. As you've seen in the fast forward, I wiped every one of these valve seats out as I've done each valve. That's going to prevent from having to go back in there and clean this again. You want to make sure there is no grit or no nastiness. This stuff does break down super fast. It turns into more like an oil residue. You wipe it out. We will have to pull the valves back out one at a time, but now these valves are matched to these valve seats in this particular head. So we don't want to pull all the valves out, get them all mixed up, and then go to put them back in, because now each individual valve has a corresponding seat. So I'm going to repeat this on the other head in the background, and when it comes time to put the valves in it for the last time, I will be back. Alright, now after you get all the valves lapped in, you're going to be ready to start assembling your heads. And what I like to do, I'm just going to take some of the STP we've used in this budget engine series, and I'm just going to take a little bit, put it on these valve stems, like so. Put our valves back in, I'll spin them a little bit. I'll repeat this process another 14 times. Big thing is, you just don't want to dry start this with the valve stems dry, because they could seize in the guides. So let me get all these valves lubed up. And it also helps to spin them as you go back in to help distribute some of that lube. And you'll know when you get it in there, because these valves will get a little harder to move. And once you get all your valves lubed up, all the valve stems lubed up, it's time to put some new valve stem seals on it. You got like these. These are what you call an umbrella seal, or just a little rubber umbrella that hangs over the guide. I personally do not prefer these. You have this style with a spring on it. These are a lot better. These are a kind of a positive stop style, so to say. But these are more than likely to stay on this guide and prevent any kind of oil burning issues. And you're going to have two different materials depending on whether it's intake or exhaust. So these are the style I'm going to use. I don't have a full metal jacketed positive stop one here at the shop to show you, but there is yet another style of valve seal. These right here are a nice upgrade for the umbrellas. And these, you're just going to take and just push these on and push them down until they lock on the valve stem. The black ones are generally for the intake valves, and the blue ones will be for your exhaust valves, because the blue is a little higher heat resistant. So just go down through here and push them all on. And once you get all your valve seals and everything on, you're ready to reinstall your valve springs. So this can be another thing. If you have an aftermarket camshaft, make sure that you have the correct spring and retainer combination for your camshaft. If you got an old stock motor, you're going to put stock cam in it and you're doing this just for a little extra power, go ahead and buy a new set of stock valve springs to put on it. It's not going to hurt anything, because over time these things get weak. So let me get these heads reassembled, guys, and then I'll be back. So once you get all your valve springs and keepers installed, guys, I like to take a hammer and I'll just tap the ends of these valves. Just to make sure that the keepers are seated. And you want to make sure you hit these square. The reason why I do that, if they're not seated correctly, they'll jump off. And worst case scenario, you start that engine up and none of them are seated. One pops out, you drop a valve and you're done. So guys, at that point, you're ready to reinstall your cylinder head. Or if you're going to paint them, now it's time to clean everything up, take them up and paint them. So that's where I'm going to leave this video off. So if you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button because it does help the channel grow. If you are a subscriber, I greatly appreciate you guys. I look forward to everybody's comments down below. So until the next one, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.